Hey guys, I'm Dov, and yes, that is a Goblin Great Shaman sitting atop an ARACHNAROK Spider's Howdah. This is a mod showcase battle of the mod Wheeze Special, Goblin Great Shaman ARACHNAROK mount by Lost to Insanity. So I'm going to be doing a couple of multiplayer battles here with Namru to showcase this boy in action. For those of you guys who aren't aware, this has been something that has been requested by myself and many other people in the community to be added by CA in the Greenskins update that should be coming in 2020. Yeah, the Goblin Great Shaman in the tabletop can take an ARACHNAROK Spider mount, this web shrine here. And Lost to Insanity has implemented it here in this mod. So for this battle, we're up against vampire counts. I've got the Goblin Great Shaman up on his spider, the ARACHNAROK Queen, so double spider, plus one giant, two black orcs, and the 8 peak loonies, so a very tight, very high leadership sort of immune to psychology blob here. We've got 4 units of Skirmish Cav, 3 Spider Riders, and the Mangy Marauders, 2 Goblin Big Bosses on Spiders, just to provide us a couple of mobile hit-and-run units. As for Namru's vampire counts, he's gone with a bit of a ghoul-themed build here. 2 Terror Guys, one of them with the Strigoi Vampire Lord, so the big boy Strigoi. We've also got some Crypt Horrors, plenty of Crypt Ghouls as well. A couple of zombies up front, looks like Black Knights over on the side there. And we've also got the Varix Reavers, I believe, yep, right here. So you can see I'm moving up, doing some skirmishing with the spiders, just sort of keeping things nice and tight here with the spider. Just let's admire just for a moment the shrine there. The big boy up on the back. We'll watch him as he does some of his casting animations up there in just a moment. You can see over here we're getting the Spider Riders unloading some ammo, getting into those Crypt Horrors. They're going to be doing some good skirmish damage, of course, that low armor. But yeah, just talking about this in general, some of the benefits of the spider up, yeah, the shaman up on the spider here. As the fanatics are unleashed, this guy's going to get into melee. We can sort of talk about it a little bit here. So, the Greenskins, one of the #1 things they lack is monster lords. Yes, technically you can take the wyverns with Azag or the Orc War Boss, but, I mean, Azag has Lore of Death, that's okay, but the main issue with the wyverns is that they have very low HP compared to a lot of other, you know, similar type monster lords. Like, if you compare them to, like, a griffin or something like that, they have significantly less HP, so look at that beautiful casting animation on the back there. So yeah, the spider definitely gives a lot more HP, and it also gives you a lord that's, of course, immune to psychology, as it also causes terror. It has heavy armor as well, so basically it's just a lord that's reasonably snipe-proof. Of course, ARACHNAROK spiders are very vulnerable to long-range armor-piercing missiles, but here, able to take out some of those horrors there. The Terror Geist didn't even highlight this, came down and just got domed by the Giant and the 2 big bosses here. So with the Terror Geist down, the Queen and the Giant are able to now focus on the Strigoi. He's popping his buffs off, but has not been able to do too much damage to the Queen. Of course, the Summons helping to provide some extra HP here, and the Black Orcs and other units just slugging it out in the trenches. So yeah, pretty strong so far. Balance power still relatively close as the Black Knights, or sorry, Varix Reavers get in here and get a good charge. Now in this mod, I will note that the Goblin Great Shaman essentially uses the stats of the base ARACHNAROK Spider. We can compare after the fact, but yeah, it does not have the improved stats of the ARACHNAROK Queen, for example. But another Fanatics cast coming through the side here. Oh man. Looks like it did a little bit of friendly fire there, even finished off one of those Black Orcs, but hey, it's pretty typical for Greenskins, right? But yeah, oh man, I love the casting animation on the back too. I just think that looks so cool. Him casting out there in the distance, throwing that itchy nuisance on that big blob. And of course, self-buffing with Sneaky Stabbing, giving that itchy nuisance, gives him a way to sort of perform a little bit better in duel-type situations as well. Those are the 2 spells I've opted to bring here. Of course, Sneaky Sealing is very good against any magic-dependent faction as well. Vampire Counts being one of those. So definitely very glad I have that in this situation. So yeah, in terms of matchups, at least for multiplayer, that I think that the Great Shaman on this mount would be good for, this is absolutely one of them that would be very, very good. Because Lore of Little Wa is so good in this matchup, but all of the casters are squishy, and just in general, all of your lords are pretty squishy. Even Grimgor, who is, you know, has immune to psychology, is reasonably tanky, just has a pretty low health pool, all things considered, and also doesn't have the best melee defense in the world, so ends up not being that tanky in practice, whereas the queen here, or sorry, not the queen, the spider, obviously just has a much larger health pool, and that is the crux of it here. Namru's going to go ahead and throw in the towel, as this is pretty much decided. We didn't need to grind it out too much, as we've got another replay to get through, but yeah. Just in general, this matchup, there are a handful of others, of course, you know, Warriors of Chaos, Tomb Kings, a lot of the other very monster-focused matchups. This double spider type situation would be very strong, and just in general, having a lord that's hard to snipe, you know, in melee, even with missiles, obviously the Goblin Great Shaman can take the spell to hide himself, the Night Shroud, so in certain matchups, certainly, he could at least get into the fight without getting shot up too much. That spell does have a relatively long cooldown, though, so it's a little bit risky to try and pull that off, you know, in a real-world situation, but, you know, on paper, you could use that to try and hide from missiles. Certainly, the double spider might not be as effective, but let's just sort of talk about things here. Yeah, 60 kills on the Shaman himself, did really good, just helping to throw the support buffs as well as super strong here, and just the fact that, you know, he wasn't going to get easily gooned by these, you know, the Strigoi and the Terrorgeist. I mean, maybe if the Strigoi and the Terrorgeist had focused on the Great Shaman himself and got him in isolation, but my plan was to sort of keep him tight with the big bosses and the Giant if need be, and just sort of keep everyone together to be able to counter the Terrorgeist, because I figured Namru might go in that direction. The Terrorgeist could be an option for the Vampire counts, you know, obviously utilizing the breaths, and just trying to maybe go with a more cavalry-focused build with, like, just more Blood Knights, maybe even more numbers of Black Knights, just to kind of spread the field, get these infantry, you know, units spread away from the monsters so that they're not necessarily supporting, because you can see he was able to do quite a bit of damage to the Queen, and that was even with me getting a very favorable engagement against his Terrorgeist. You can see the Giant got 2 XP chevrons from doing that damage to said Terrorgeist. Black Orcs, of course, racking up a ton of kills as well, as did the Loons. So pretty good stuff. I've got one more battle here to show you with Namru, so let's go ahead and get to it. Alright, here we are again with the Shaman up on the Spider. This time we're in the Badlands, home of the Greenskins, and we're facing off against the Dark Elves. So this is one matchup where you could potentially face some armor-piercing missiles. I elected not to bring the Night Shroud in this situation, just because, you know, the bolt throwers aren't necessarily as big of an issue, and crossbows tend to be reasonably short range, so instead we've gone for more of a Spider Swarm strategy. Very thematic here. We've got 4 units of Spider Riders, which with chevrons are extremely cost effective. They've got really good melee defense, some Spider Rider archers, and the Mangy Marauders once again. Got the AP Gloons, this time a couple other units of Fanatics, some Chevron Skulkers, again the ARACHNAROK Queen, and a couple units of Chaff Goblins as well. For Namru's Dark Elves, he's got a Supreme Sorceress with Dark Magic, Lore of Beasts as well, or sorry, Lore of Shadows with Enfeebling Foe. He's got Chill of Sontar and a Charybdis, so looking to try and monster mash against those spiders a little bit. He's got some Dread Spears and so on. Over here we've got a pitched engagement with the Slaanesha's Harvesters dropping Word of Pain there. I also pop Wa and Sneaky Stabbin' on the opposite unit. Enfeebling Foe there as well, so some significant buffs and debuffs on both sides. You can see just through numbers here and through cost, I am actually winning that engagement in terms of value. We're also going to throw the Spider in there to support. He may take some armor-piercing crossbow bolts right now, but it looks like they're a little bit tied up and they're not getting that great of values. That being said, the Raven's Heralds combined with the Charybdis there did manage to chase off my big boss, which is not great. I do have another big boss here. We're going to smoke bomb that Charybdis and start to fight it with those Chevron Skulkers. Over here, this Soul Stealer did catch, or actually no, it doesn't look like it got my Goblin Great Shaman, perhaps. Did manage to heal those Slaanesh Harvesters a bit though, but we're going to continue to push back with the spiders. The other groups of spiders are in a position to start to sweep back here as well. Meanwhile, in the front line, Fanatics being cast here, and we're summoning some spiders as well. Looks like they're going to take some damage from those Fanatics, but that's totally fine. Meanwhile, this big boss is going to come in to support the Arachnarok Queen here, and you can see he's going to be able to get some rear attacks on this Charybdis, which will be a very favorable situation for me. Does look like another Soul Stealer is going to go down, but in the back, this is who we're really focused on, right? Is the spider guy with his Spider Riders in support, just absolutely massacring these Doomfire Warlocks here and just doing a ton of damage. More Fanatics just cleaving through those Dread Spears. And I'm feeling pretty good about things so far. We've been able to sweep up a lot of these Dark Riders, which were the main threat to the Great Shaman here in terms of missiles. The monsters I'm able to deal with reasonably effectively. The Queen actually does go down here, which is a huge loss for me. You can see that does tip the balance of power back pretty significantly, but just because we've been able to do so much damage to this army already, my Night Goblins trading very efficiently with these Dread Spears in the front line. These Skulkers have taken almost no damage here, going to be able to get in and start to support. It looks like, unfortunately, the big boss did get routed off, but some more victorious infantry here coming in. My Skirmish Cav also very healthy at this point, and the spiders, still so many spiders in the back here chasing off these Dark Riders, chasing off these Slaanesh Harvesters. Slaanesh Harvesters just don't have the armor piercing to get through the big boy here. And of course, with the good melee defense, as I mentioned, the poison, these Spider Riders are just a great unit to be in here supporting. So another Wah gets popped and another huge damage spike as we get a rear charge over here. You can see the Chillisautar trying to get away, but we are going to be able to pop a smoke bomb there, pin that thing in place, start to drag it down. The Raven's Heralds getting mass fired by all these different archers, and of course they have pretty low HP, so they will start to drop relatively quickly here. Supreme Sorceress is going to try and get in, but the other Sorceress on the cold one here actually getting chased off by the Goblin Big Boss. So at that point, it's pretty much going to hit critical army losses. Yep, got another summon there in the back line, and just too many spiders. In the words of Namru himself, too many spiders. So a bit more of a thematic build this time on my side, and it actually proved really, really effective. Again, having the caster up on one of the spiders allows you to go with this double spider type build a lot more efficiently. And, you know, you also get the ability to take the two big bosses on spiders as well, which just adds to the theme and is also quite strong. Big bosses, I think, are pretty underrated in general. For the price, they are pretty strong heroes at assassinating casters. They're decent at going after, you know, low armor type monsters and just supporting in general. And yeah, this kind of mass goblin build, again, with the two spiders, just gives it a lot more teeth, a lot more punch against something like this double monster. I mean, granted, I'm not the biggest fan of Charybdises here, or Charybdises, I don't know. Ended up doing some good damage, and although Namri was able to take out the Queen, I think maybe he should have allocated his resources instead to try and take out the Great Shaman, because with his support, I was able to push into the back line and just sweep up a lot of these cav without them really getting too much value. We were kind of talking more after the fact as well about just how Dark Elves could counter something like this. I think Malekith up on a dragon with a more cav-centric build, heavy cav-centric build I should say, where your focus would be to try and clear out all the support and then use Malekith in the late game to try and cycle charge the big spiders. So I do have a test as well, just to kind of, out of curiosity, I wanted to see in terms of power level where this guy was at. So let's go to a test. We're going to have the spider 1v1 versus Kolek. So let's get to it. Alright, and here we are. We're just going to get straight into it here. We've got Kolek in the distance, had to test against the AI, so yeah, we're just going to get straight through here. As for what this is going to look like, I do pop Wah, And in addition, I've also got Sneaky Stabbin' and Itchy Nuisance. Now granted, Kolek does have Standard Die and Foe Seeker. He does not have Star Crusher, so granted, keep that in mind as this test goes on. Another thing about this test is when single entity models are fighting like this, a lot of it has to do with RNG, but certainly with the buffs and debuffs, you can see that the Spider Lord was able to take a pretty clear advantage there. So we're now, as the buffs wear off, going to continue to fast forward because I do want to get through this test relatively quickly. And just kind of show you guys, it does end up being pretty close in the late game, as you can see Kolek, as the RNG starts to turn back in his favor a little bit there, is able to bring things back to just about even, but still, the Spider is able to just slightly beat Kolek there. So just to kind of give you guys an idea of the power level of this guy, he was literally just about to rout himself, but he just barely squeaks out a win there against Kolek. And we'll go ahead and just go straight to the custom battle screen so that I can sort of talk about cost and everything, and just how this Spider could balance in if CA was to implement it. And although this is a mod showcase, and I definitely want to give props to Lost to Insanity rather, for this excellent mod. I'm definitely going to be using it if I decide to do more Greenskins campaigns in the future, and who knows, maybe I'll occasionally give you guys the ARACHNAROK Lord battle just for fun. But yeah, in terms of how this could be balanced if CA were to implement it, so in terms of how the mod author has chosen to balance things here, it's 1600 points in custom battle, which I think is pretty in line with what we would expect for other monster caster type lords. For two comparisons, if we go to the Dark Elves, the Supreme Sorceress, if we take her on a Black Dragon, is 1850, so that's a little bit more expensive than the Spider there. But in comparison, the Lizardmen have also lords that can that are casters that can take monsters. Granted, they are legendary lords, so you'd expect them to be more cost efficient in terms of their mounts, and Slock is significantly cheaper, as is the Ancient Stegodon for Tanawin. So, you know, the cost is within the range of what we would expect, and I do think that honestly at 1600 this is a pretty good price point. Maybe you could go slightly higher, honestly, but 1600 feels like a pretty good price point for this. In the mod, you don't get access to the items, but obviously, if CA were to implement this, you would get access to that Crown of Command and the Scroll of Leeching there. But just in general, I already talked about being able to self-buff with Sneaky Stabbin', also support with Itchy Nuisance as well. Gork'll Fix It will also help, debuff opponent's speed if you have a situation where you're trying to catch a certain lord, maybe you're chasing them, or if you are trying to escape a certain situation, or just in general negate a charge. Gork'll Fix It, definitely very useful. Again, I did talk about Night Shroud as well, being able to hide himself with that ability there. Curse to Bad Moon, pretty underrated Vortex in my opinion. That debuff is actually quite strong. The armor, melee defense, and speed of Dynasty Curse, quite good in a multitude of situations, but just in general, I mean, obviously the lore attribute Sneaky Stealin' against magic heavy factions does sort of favor spamming the cheap spells, so I do think that taking the Sneaky Stabbin' and Itchy Nuisance would be a pretty standard kit for him. And if we look here, 2555 is pretty in line with Kolek's base cost here. I mean, obviously there's an argument to be made that in that specific situation, you would want something more like this with just Standard Die and Star Crusher, but in a real-world situation, you would very often have Foe Seeker and Lord of the Storm as well. So that kind of, puts the price up on Kolek a little bit. Now, granted, Kolek also doesn't have, magic, but still, in terms of power level, it's pretty in line with what we would expect. I mean, Tahanawin is a little bit more expensive, but granted, his mount, I would say, is arguably more powerful. It does have more weapon strength. You get this orbital bombardment as well. And, I mean, in a typical spell loadout, he's going to be, not too far out of range of what we would expect for a monster caster type lord. Mazdamundi in a similar situation as well, with a more realistic kit of what you might take in a real-world situation, something like this. I mean, he's very comparable in terms of price, so I really think that in terms of price balance, 1600 is probably about on. You could maybe make an argument for slightly more, maybe like 17 1750, but I think it's pretty good in terms of balance. And in general, in terms of the general balance for the greenskins, it would take some adjusting, because right now the paradigm against the greenskins is very much try and snipe their lord so that you can just route everything off easily, right? Because it has relatively low leadership. This guy would kind of change that paradigm, and people would sort of have to prepare around that. But, I mean, obviously, you still have access to spiders already. Just to kind of compare the stats here, you can see that it does have essentially identical stats to the basic ARACHNAROK spider, right? Just with the added ability of having a caster and, you know, being able to take evasion, which does give a little bit of extra melee defense and speed. A little bit of a difference there, but in general, they are very comparable in terms of stats here, even have the same leadership. So yeah, the leadership is the biggest issue. 55 leadership up on the spider is pretty low, and I do think it would be reasonably easy to route this guy off if he were to take a bunch of burst damage from like maybe a couple good charges, but it is definitely powerful. So what do you guys think in the comments down below? Let me know. Again, if anyone from CA is watching this, please, 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 in the Greenskins update, can we have this? This is probably the #1 thing that I would want in the Greenskins update in terms of free content. Like, I really think that this is something that they could add that would be super easy to do. It would be an awesome free update, and everyone would love them for it. Maybe, okay, maybe not arachnophobes, but still, I would love them for it, certainly. So, yeah, this has pretty much been it for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this mod showcase. I'll have a link to the mod in the description down below, so be sure to check that out. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.